Uh, Mr. Al Ryan Alejandre, Executive Director of the National Commission for the Culture and the Arts, to our Dean, ang ating makatang dekano, Dean Leonardo Estacio Jr., Dr. Merites Buot from the UP Los Baños, Professor and Chair of the Associated Arts Program, and also the UPOU, UP Open University, Dr. Mabini Dizon, Professor of the Department of Humanities of UPLB and UPOU, Dr. Martin Genopdepa, Director of OICA Visayas, Professor Joyce Alegre, Chair of the Division of Humanities, UP Tacloban, Professor G. Alaba Marigate, Central Bicol State University of Agriculture, San Jose Pili, Camarines Sur, Professor Alice Adeva, Chair of the UP Manila CAS Department of Arts and Communication, Professor Hani Libertine Akanzar Labor, the convener of this conference on celebrating 500 years of heritage with local flora. To our conference speakers, participating artists in the festival art exhibits, members of the Faura Project, students, ladies and gentlemen, isang magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. This virtual Flores de Mayo is indeed a welcome respite from the COVID pandemic still swirling all around us, bringing this tradition back to UP Manila and to all of us, inspires us in our efforts to revitalize and enhance the preservation of our heritage in Ermita, particularly in Padre Faura Street and its environs. It is also an auspicious opportunity for the nostalgic appreciation of this locale, which has become a part of the life, a home, a sanctuary for every student, faculty, worker, and staff of UP Manila. In addition, there is pride in our hearts that Ermita, because this is the original birthplace of our university, having been founded in this exact place in 1908. But for our students and our guests, as a matter of fact, the College of Medicine preceded the university. It is founded in 1905. I have seen the evolution of the area since I entered the College of Medicine in 1977. Yes, more than 4 decades in this area. It was very different then. No malls, quiet Pedro Hill, and quiet Padre Faura, dark, and very few people and very quiet side streets. But we must go back and remember how it was even before the university actually was born in this area. And since there were few buildings at that time, there were few people, and of course there were more flowers and maybe more birds at that time. So much has happened in the past couple of decades. Now, this occasion is also in keeping with the commemoration of the month of May as the National Heritage Month by virtue of Presidential Proclamation number 439, which aims to create among the Filipinos consciousness, respect, and love for the legacies of nations' cultural history. I commend and thank the Faura Project Incorporated, an organization formed by alumni, faculty, and students of the BA Philippine Arts, Cultural Heritage and Arts Management Program of the University of the Philippines, Manila, and friends, bound by a common cause, which is to revive, revitalize, and sustain the rich cultural and historical heritage of Ermita. This group is a testament to the value of the BA Philippine Arts Cultural Heritage Arts Management Program of UP Manila, as this is the program in our CU that is directed towards preservation of our artistic and cultural riches. This highlights UP Manila's thrust not only in academics, but also in the field of arts. The theme and color of this year's festival is also in sync with the celebration of the Philippine Quincentenary, the UP Manila commemoration, which opened on May 7 with a webinar on several themes. Indeed, This ceremony with the theme celebrating 500 years of heritage with local flowers being marked with the observance of our quincentennial year gives it added beauty and color. We are in the middle of making this campus green and colorful. That's why I like the project. I hope that your group will help develop the campus to another respite from the very busy environment now. When the students and the alumni come and visit in 2 to 3 years, we expect the campus to be very green and hopefully colorful, hopefully with a lot of the local flowers that we can bring in. So I am one with you in your project. And every year, we must celebrate this, not only during the centennial or the quincentennial year, but every year let us remind our staff, our faculty, our students that the Philippines is a colorful country because of the flowers that we have, the local flowers that we have. The chosen topics and speakers mirror the richness and extensiveness of the Philippine cultural patrimony. And I thank the speakers for rekindling in us a deeper interest and passion for the things that remind us of our beginnings and identity as a people. So together, let us savor the flowers, reminisce the past, and revel in our rich heritage, very, very rich. And with this deepened humanity, we will be reinvigorated to rise and face the challenges of today. Let's enjoy the colors of La Flora in Ermita. Maraming salamat po sa inyo at isang magandang umaga po ulit sa inyong lahat.